For centuries, the Amish have relied on time-tested, practical methods to keep their food supply abundant, even without modern conveniences. From salt curing to brine pickling, they've mastered techniques that ensure meat stays fresh and flavorful for much longer than most people would expect. In this video, we'll explore 10 affordable off-grid preservation approaches you can try yourself, all inspired by Amish wisdom and resourcefulness. Number 1. Traditional salt curing. Amish communities often rely on a centuries-old salt curing process to extend the shelf life of beef, pork, and poultry. By using coarse salt and sometimes additional spices, they create an environment that draws moisture out of the meat, which inhibits bacterial growth. Unlike modern facilities that rely on electric refrigeration, these households utilize large wooden or stone containers known as curing vats, often crafted to allow uniform contact between the salt mixture and each cut. The Amish might layer their cuts in a systematic manner, carefully ensuring that even the hard-to-reach portions are well packed with salt. Some families may include brown sugar or various seasonings, customizing the flavor profile and creating a signature taste. After the designated curing period, which can range from a few days to several weeks depending on the specific meat type and thickness, the salt-rubbed cuts might be hung in cool, dry areas like a cellar or smokehouse. This meticulous approach helps maintain the meat's quality without the benefit of electric chillers. While not all Amish families use the exact same recipe, since traditions vary from one community to another, the core principle remains consistent: extracting moisture to reduce the risk of spoilage. This technique also allows for creative layering, as they may cure multiple batches simultaneously, provided they maintain proper spacing. By controlling humidity and air circulation, they further ensure that the final product remains stable for longer periods, letting them enjoy meat beyond immediate consumption times without relying on modern freezers. Observing older generations is key. Experienced family members share knowledge through hands-on demonstrations, emphasizing the role of precise salt ratios, dryness levels, and the best way to handle meat cuts. In many cases, the best salted pieces are later repurposed for various dishes or stored in cloth bags so that the salt crystals don't disperse into the surrounding environment too quickly. The final result is a distinctively seasoned, shelf-stable meat that reflects a heritage of off-grid living and careful resource management. Number 2. Smokehouse drying. Beyond salt curing, Amish families frequently employ smokehouse methods to preserve and flavor meat. In many Amish homesteads, wooden smokehouses stand adjacent to barns or utility buildings, constructed to allow thorough but controlled smoke penetration. The practice of cold smoking, rather than hot smoking, plays a major role in drying the interior of the meat while infusing an array of smoky flavors derived from local wood sources such as oak, hickory, or fruit woods. Once properly salted or brined, the cuts are hung from hooks or suspended on racks, ensuring that no pieces touch. This spacing allows the circulating smoke to envelop each portion consistently. Timing is crucial. Some families might smoke meat for several days or even weeks, depending on external temperature, humidity, and thickness of the cut. The smoke helps form a protective outer layer, preventing moisture from entering and deterring microbial growth. Smokehouse maintenance is also important, as the accumulated creosote can affect flavor if not managed. The Amish often keep their smokehouses at lower temperatures, ensuring the meat is exposed to smoldering wood rather than direct flames. This approach not only imparts deeper flavors, but also avoids inadvertently cooking the meat. Ventilation is carefully regulated through adjustable vents or small openings, controlling smoke levels and temperature. Seasonality influences the process. Winter smoking, for instance, can extend the drying period if outside humidity is higher, while summertime heat can sometimes reduce the required smoking duration. After the smoking session, the meat is typically wrapped in cloth or special paper and stored in cool pantries or cellars. These spaces maintain a stable environment without electricity, which is particularly helpful to ensure the smoked cuts remain edible for extended periods. The result is a robustly flavored, shelf-stable product that showcases the Amish mastery over traditional preservation methods. Number 3. Pressure canning. While canning might not seem like an off-grid technique at first glance, the Amish have adapted pressure canning in ways that don't depend on modern electric stoves. They often use gas or wood-burning cook stoves to bring water-filled canners to the required pressure, enabling the safe preservation of meat. During the canning procedure, jars, commonly mason jars with lids and rings, are filled with either raw or partially cooked meat. Some Amish households add simple seasonings or broths to improve taste, but typically keep it minimal to ensure the meat remains a versatile ingredient for various future meals. The pressure canner is heated to a precise level, maintaining the recommended PSI for the correct duration to annihilate harmful bacteria. Because the Amish do not use conventional electricity, they're particularly mindful of the process, strictly following tested guidelines passed down or referenced in community recipe collections. After canning, these sealed jars are kept in cellars or pantries away from direct sunlight, where the stable temperature further extends shelf life. The advantage of pressure canning lies in its ability to preserve a wide variety of meat cuts, everything from chicken breast to ground beef to venison, without relying on the consistent cold of a fridge. The Amish also value the convenience factor. If a large amount of meat must be processed quickly, canning a significant portion in one session efficiently transforms fresh cuts into ready-to-eat meals. This method is especially valuable during large events or at harvest time, when families might slaughter livestock in significant numbers. Because each jar is vacuum sealed, spoilage is minimized, and many jars remain good for a year or more, providing a reliable protein source throughout seasons when fresh meat is less accessible. Families often label the lids with dates, ensuring proper rotation and usage before the quality starts to deteriorate. Number 4. Brine pickling. A less commonly highlighted but still effective approach is brine pickling, in which Amish families immerse or soak meat in a saltwater solution, sometimes enhanced with natural spices or herbs. The concept is akin to salt curing, but involves a liquid medium. This method draws out moisture while infusing the meat with a distinct tanginess or mild salty essence. Traditionally, brine pickling might be done in large, food-grade barrels or sturdy ceramic crocks, frequently stored in a shaded part of a barn or in a root cellar. The consistency of the brine solution is carefully monitored. Too little salt compromises preservation, while too much salt can render the final product unpalatable. Some communities include sugar, cloves, peppercorns, or bay leaves to impart a richer aroma. Although brine pickling can work on various meats, pork and beef are particularly popular for this style of preservation. The immersion period ranges from several days to weeks, letting the salt and any added acids thoroughly permeate the cut. After removing the meat from the brine, it's essential to allow excess moisture to drain off or even air dry for a short period, discouraging mold or surface bacteria. Once adequately dried, the pieces might be placed in sealed containers or wrapped in heavy butcher paper, ensuring minimal contact with air. Despite the relative simplicity of the process, observation is crucial, as any change in the color or smell of the brine indicates potential issues. By frequently checking and adjusting salt or other ingredients, Amish households keep the solution in a stable range. Brine pickling effectively builds on the principle of lowering water activity around the meat's surface. all without the need for mechanical cooling systems. Number 5. Root cellar storage. Many people associate root cellars only with fruits and vegetables, but the Amish also apply creative solutions to store certain types of preserved meats underground. After an initial curing or smoking process, smaller cuts may be wrapped in breathable cloth or specialized paper, then placed in wooden crates or barrels for short-term storage in the cellar. The Earth's naturally cooler temperatures and the cellar's regulated humidity significantly slow bacterial growth. In many Amish homesteads, root cellars are dug deep enough to maintain a stable environment year-round. Walls might be lined with stone or concrete, and the floor is often dirt, which helps regulate moisture. Some families may hang dried sausages or small smoked hams from the rafters, where there is minimal direct contact with damp surfaces. Using hooks or rope ensures air can circulate around the meat, preventing mold buildup. The Amish pay close attention to ventilation inside the cellar, employing air vents or small windows that can be opened periodically for fresh airflow, ensuring the interior doesn't become stagnant. The layering of straw or sawdust might be used in some cases to insulate and maintain dryness around stored items. Because electricity is avoided, alternative methods like kerosene lamps or battery-powered lanterns help them inspect their stores regularly. The ability to combine a root cellar with other meat preservation strategies, like partial smoking, salting, or canning, means a single household can tailor its approach to the type of cut and the expected storage timeline. This synergy is central to off-grid living, where every resource is maximized to ensure year-round food security. Number 6. Rendering and sealing in lard. Another noteworthy technique involves preserving cooked or partially cooked meat by submerging it in hot rendered lard. Pork-based lard is common in Amish cuisine, and when it solidifies around the meat in a container or crock, it creates an airtight seal. This approach has historical roots in many cultures, but the Amish have maintained it consistently, thanks to readily available lard from their hog butchering. The process begins by cooking or browning the meat, which might be cut into manageable pieces. While it's still hot, the meat is carefully packed into sterilized stoneware or sturdy containers. Next, melted lard is poured to cover the pieces entirely. Once cooled, the lard solidifies and prevents air exposure, significantly slowing oxidation and bacterial growth. This simple, electricity-free technique can keep pork, sausage, or other meats edible for months if stored in a cool place like a cellar or pantry. Occasionally, families incorporate garlic, sage, or other herbs into the lard, adding a subtle flavor while also leveraging potential antibacterial properties. Each time some meat is removed, the surface is leveled, and new lard might be added if necessary to maintain the complete seal. This helps extend the product's lifespan and ensures that uncovered pieces aren't exposed to microbes. Because the Amish regularly butcher hogs, the practice of rendering lard is already part of their routine, making it a practical solution to store smaller, pre-cooked portions of meat. It's a straightforward method. No complicated gear beyond a sturdy stove and container is required, yet it effectively defies spoilage without depending on refrigeration. Number 7. Sausage fermentation. Fermented sausages such as summer sausage or certain salamis form another avenue for meat preservation in Amish contexts. These products undergo a controlled curing process that promotes beneficial bacteria and lowers pH levels to discourage harmful organisms. Often, ground pork or beef is mixed with curing salts, spices, and a starter culture if available, then tightly packed into casings. The Amish rely on precise temperature and humidity conditions to ensure proper fermentation, typically in spaces with moderate climate control such as spring houses, root cellars, or dedicated curing rooms. Over time, lactic acid bacteria multiply, transforming sugars into lactic acid and infusing the meat with characteristic tangy notes. After reaching the optimal acidity, the sausages are usually hung to dry for several days or weeks, depending on the thickness of the casing and the family's preference. This drying phase helps lock in the flavor and achieve a texture suitable for slicing. Smoking can sometimes follow fermentation, adding a protective coating and signature taste. Families will periodically test small pieces to confirm the flavor and dryness level. Because each batch can differ slightly, there is an element of artistry involved. Some households might incorporate wild herbs or peppers grown in their gardens, tailoring the flavor to community tastes. The resulting fermented sausages can be stored in cool, dry spaces for extended periods, offering a nutrient-dense protein source that doesn't demand continuous chilling. This preservation process requires careful timing and monitoring, but yields a product that can last through multiple seasons while still tasting fresh and well-seasoned. Number 8. Jerky dehydration. Dehydrating sliced meat is yet another staple in Amish households that need to conserve resources without modern refrigeration. Typically, the meat is cut into thin strips, marinated with salt, vinegar, or a combination of herbs and spices, then dried either in a low-temperature oven or an off-grid dehydrator, often a simple wooden cabinet with screen trays that can be heated by a wood stove or placed in direct sunlight, depending on local weather conditions. The idea is to remove as much water as possible from the slices, rendering them shelf-stable. Airflow is essential. Some Amish families construct louvered racks that allow continuous movement of fresh air across the drying meat, preventing moisture buildup. In moderate climates, they might rely on the natural heat of the sun, but during colder periods, they shift to more controlled heat sources. The dryness level must be consistent to avoid partial spoilage. Because jerky is easy to transport and store, it's popular for tasks involving travel between farmland or long working days in the field. Each family might have its own signature marinade, ranging from sweet hickory to tangy vinegar-based blends. Jerky can last for weeks or even months when stored properly in airtight containers, but the Amish often consume it regularly as a high-protein snack or incorporate it into stews for additional flavor. If extra dryness is needed, some might give the slices a short round of cold smoke after dehydration to lock in flavor and fortify the exterior. This method is cost-effective and space-friendly, as only thin cuts are needed, making it a practical solution for families managing small livestock or large game. Number 9. Clamping and barrel storing in sawdust. While less common than salt curing or smoking, storing partially cured meat in sawdust or wood shavings is occasionally practiced in certain Amish groups. Typically, they'll take smaller cuts or even whole hams that have been pre-treated with salt or a mild brine, then pack them carefully into barrels layered with sawdust from hardwoods. This sawdust acts as a natural desiccant, absorbing remaining moisture around the meat surface and creating a buffer against rapid temperature fluctuations. Barrels used for this method are kept in shaded areas, often in outbuildings or cellars. The Amish keep the sawdust dry, ensuring that no pockets of dampness contribute to mold formation. Periodic checks involve removing the top layer of sawdust, inspecting the meat for color changes, and then repacking with fresh material if needed. Because hardwood sawdust is not as prone to harboring pests as some softwoods, the risk of insects getting to the meat is reduced. Some families might add herbal elements like dried sage or thyme among the layers, hoping to repel insects and contribute a subtle aromatic note. This method also demands that the ambient humidity in storage areas remains reasonably low. In regions with higher humidity, the Amish might rely on another technique, but for those in drier climates or with well-ventilated cellars, sawdust packing becomes a viable option. It's a tactic that underscores the resourcefulness of off-grid living, using readily available materials to maintain stability around meat cuts without specialized equipment. Although this approach does require consistent monitoring, for families seeking to preserve small to medium portions of meat, it offers a frugal and practical solution. Number 10. Sugar curing. While salt-based curing gets most of the attention, sugar curing is another noteworthy method among some Amish communities, often used for hams or bacon slabs. Combining sugar, commonly brown sugar, with salt creates a milder curing mix that lends a hint of sweetness while still drawing moisture out. Various spices might be added for complexity: black pepper, paprika, or even nutmeg. The meat is rubbed thoroughly, then placed in a covered container or wrapped in craft paper to rest for a set number of days. Throughout this resting period, the Amish turn or flip the cuts every couple of days to ensure even penetration. Excess liquid is drained off or allowed to drip away, further minimizing water content. Some families follow up with a cold smoke session to seal the outer layers. Sugar curing is beloved for its balanced flavor, neither excessively salty nor overwhelmingly sweet. Once fully cured, the meat can hang in a smokehouse or well-ventilated attic, provided the temperatures are suitably cool. Amish households may slice off portions as needed, returning the main cut to storage for future use. It's not rare to see sugar-cured bacon treated as a prized breakfast item, carefully rationed over several weeks. Because sugar can feed certain bacteria if moisture is high, careful dryness checks are critical. However, when done correctly, this technique yields a stable product that won't spoil quickly. Those seeking to shift away from purely salty cures find sugar curing offers a pleasant alternative, one that produces a gentle caramelization when the meat is eventually cooked. The process, passed down through various Amish family lines, serves as a flavorful demonstration of how combining sweet and savory elements can preserve meat for the long term without modern refrigeration.